Welcome to another episode of Prime Focus, a program that spotlights issues of concern to individuals, families, and communities, bringing greater awareness and education with a view to improving the lot of others through anticipated positive action. I know I said that in a rush, but I'm just so excited because we have in the house again Lillian Oliveri. For those of you who watched that first episode, if you missed that first episode, I'm just going to encourage you. Take some time out after you've watched this one and go back and watch that episode, Thriving as a Black Business Owner. My. I was taking notes when I was listening to her speak on that particular topic, the things about networks and legacy. And oh my goodness, that was amazing. But you know what? We have something even better for you, because today it's not about where you're from or the color of your skin or anything like that, or stage of your business. This is for everybody. So if I were you, I would get all my friends to watch this just as you started watching it yourself. Lillian Sarah Oliveri is the founder and director of Kale Accountancy Limited, based in South London, with over 25 years of experience helping businesses, from startups and schools to law firms and charities, to take control of their finances with clarity and confidence. Today on Prime Focus, we're joined by a woman who is not just an expert in numbers, but a true partner to entrepreneurs and small business owners. Known for her warm, approachable style, Lillian supports her clients all year round, offering both on-site and virtual services across the UK. She's passionate about demystifying business finances, empowering people to make informed decisions. Whether you're just starting out, scaling up, or simply trying to stay afloat, Lillian brings a wealth of experience, practical wisdom, and a genuine desire to see people succeed. Lillian, it's a pleasure to have you again join us today. And I know Kale Accountancy Limited is going to go great places.
Thank you. I hope so. I hope so too. Yeah, it's nice. Thanks for having me back again. Yeah,
yes, I really enjoyed that episode. I just knew, you know what, this lady has to certainly come back. I know she's super busy, but we still need her back. Lillian, maybe if you just start with maybe a bit of your own journey. How did you get into finance or business finance or accountancy? Because people say, accountancy, people love it, but it's like, oh, it's so difficult and things like that. So what actually got you started, and how did it shape the way you help people today?
So for me, the school I attended, or the secondary school I attended, was very different from the UK type of schooling. And in that education setting, they did accountancy as a subject. And I did it so well. And I thoroughly enjoyed it because I liked maths at the time. Not such a big maths person at the moment, but I do still enjoy formulas and things like that, and chemistry type of formulas and sorting out queries. So that was always in the background. But when I came across the subject of accountancy and in secondary school, absolutely loved it and enjoyed the subject. And then speaking with my mom and saying, well, what do? I like this kind of work. And there were two areas of field that I liked at secondary school. So one was technical drawing, which would mean I would go down the route as an architect, or accountancy. And I veered towards accountancy. So that's what really gave me that drive, that beginning, I guess, for working in accountancy. And I've not really looked back. I have tried to come out of accountancy when I was younger, thinking I could change careers, but I really do love, more so now than ever, because of all the changes that are happening working in accountancy. In terms of how did it shape how to start my own business, again, that was a family trend, I guess. Not a trend, but certain family members did that. So I had sisters who started up their own business or side business, my aunts, and especially my two grandfathers. So one we call Papa, he had his own horse raising horses as his business, and another one who was quite a well-off or successful farmer in St. Andrews in Jamaica. So that was kind of the background I was coming from. Always kind of knew when I was younger that I didn't want to stay in full-time employment. I really wanted to try my hand at working for myself. And 4 years down the line, here I am finally doing it full time. So yeah,
Wow.
enjoying it. Yeah.
Wow. So you got an adventurous spirit, and of course you had it in the blood as well. When you mentioned the technical drawing, and that's, oh, that's interesting. That's the first person I've met, because years ago I also wanted to be an architect, so I
Yeah.
studied a lot of that stuff, and I remember when I was just before going for the interview, an uncle of mine, a professor, asked me, "Why do you want to be an architect?" I said, "Because there's money in it." He said, "Young man, that's the wrong reason for going into something,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
so that was good advice for me, because that was the only motivation. He said, "Don't you realize that they are poor architects?" I'm like, "Really? Okay."
Oh dear.
Oh, wow. Okay, thank you so much for that. Along the journey now, I'm not going to summarize anything here now. You possibly haven't, but if you have, yes, have you made any mistake on your journey, or if not, have you witnessed any in your early on in your career, and that maybe our audience can learn something from?
I think one of the things I've learned for myself, and to be fair, I was advised, because when I started my business, I reached out to two ladies to give me some support, Jackie Stewart and Roz Hodgson. They're both accounting professionals, and reached out to them. And one of the advice I got from Jackie was, just because you're starting a business, don't feel like you have to say yes to everything. But I think what she was trying to say, or not trying, but actually saying, was it's really important that you engage or take on board clients that align with you and your business module and what you stand for. So again, I didn't heed that advice. Unfortunately, I took on anybody and everybody because I was just concerned about making income and getting money in, because I literally left my full-time work and just went straight into running my business. I had some money put aside, which was useful. So I had that as savings to invest in the business, as well as have as backup to support me while I started the 6 months to a year of the
Mhm.
business running, to see what would happen. And it's really important to look at your audience, look at your clientele, really zone in and focus on that. Who's going to actually want your service and pay for it, and not want to debate with you, cause issue. And you won't tell you, and I think that comes with experience. You won't be able to tell straight off the bat when you first start, but as you get on in the business, you'll definitely be able to identify those clients where you're thinking, you know what, you're a time waster, or two, you actually genuinely want to work with me, but right now is not the time. So I won't write off those clients. I would say keep in touch with them. Let's see if we can do a different price range for you and work alongside, because they identify that we work well. We there's a vibe. We get on really well, and they really want to work with me, and I really want to work with them. But right now, in terms of their budgets, they can't afford me. So what we do
Right.
is we set up something in place that we say, I will support you up to this point, but this price bracket, and then we move on. And then as the business grows, we grow together. So I think it's really important to target those clients that are going to want your service and value your service as well.
Mhm.
I think other mistakes I've witnessed in other um, businesses, I guess, is the issue of managing cash flow, which we'll talk about later, I guess. But it's about how you manage your cash flow, and that is also part of the planning. So I would say look at who your target audience is. Is that market saturated with what you're providing? And if it is, how are you going to be different from them? So for my field, there's a lot of bookkeepers, there's a lot of accountancy practice, but what is going to make me stand out against all the others and make clients want to work with me, regardless of the size or the type of, or whatever the structure is? Yeah.
All right. Interesting point you've raised there, and I think one of them that struck a chord was a bit about, you know what, I just need funds to be coming in, so I just reach
Mm.
anybody. And with time, you sort of get frustrated when you try to do that, because if you don't identify your ideal clients, it becomes a bit of a challenge, you know. And
Yeah.
you talk about different perceptions of value and things like that as well.
Mm.
So value for yourself and maybe value for the client. And so I like what you said. You still keep in touch with them. You didn't throw them away, which unfortunately I've seen some people do. They get start getting business in and they think, okay, you know what, I'll stay with the big ticket items, forget the small players, and maybe there's a dip the following year and then they get affected as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. And thank you so much for all that detail that you gave us there. What would be key financial steps to take before launching a business for anybody who is starting? What would you say to such a person?
I think um, I think for if you're starting a business, I definitely think about
Mm,
research, budgets, and planning. You can save yourself a lot of heartache, heartache and worry and stress along the line. You're never going to get it perfect or 100% right, but at least you can say, well, this is the area I'm going into. So, for example, I'm selling T-shirts or marketing new trainers or something like that, or an app. Who is it geared to? Is there someone else in the market? Am I going to be an anomaly? How are people going to hear about me? So do the research and set plans, as in a timetable, as to each goalpost what you should be achieving or what you would like to achieve, what the target is. In
mhm,
terms of the financial side, budget is big in terms of how much is it going to cost for you to set up that business. If you're in manufacturing, like you're manufacturing the shoes or tennis shoes or something like that, or trainers, how much input are you going to be is going to be required to
mm,
set that up, to get the manufacturers in place? Are they going to be inland? Are they going to be overseas? If they're going to be overseas, what are the logistics? The logistics might include, I'm going to make it overseas and have it shipped directly to the customer, or am I going to have it made overseas and then shipped to me to be approved or looked at before to see if they reach the quality standards that I've set up, and then send to the end customer, the client or the customer.
mhm,
So there's all those type of things that you have to mull over and go deep dive into before just saying, I'm going to start a business, create a name on Companies House. And then, especially if you're moving from a full-time role and you're wanting to go full-time in your, can you do it as cut off, or will you be able to do it gradually and incrementally, just set up the business and do that? So I think the first financial step I would do is budgeting, look at the plan, and in that plan, do my research and work, and the budgets and the research work hand in hand. So if I'm researching suppliers, how much are they requiring for me to put down or to pay each month? Will the terms of with the suppliers be monthly, quarterly, or every 7 days? Can I meet those targets or agree to those terms? So it's never quite as just straightforward. I just started business and here I go. If you're starting a consultancy or even myself, an accountancy practice, things that you need to put in place before you can start engaging with the clients, templates, procedures. Now we have governmental changes with Companies House
mhm,
that accountancy practices and bookkeeping practices have to put in place. If you're doing confirmation statements, you now have to, just can't be doing that. You need to be registered with Companies House as an agent to do that. And then there's also other factors involved in that, which I won't get into the detail. But things are constantly changing. So the plan will always change. It's never fixed forever. You're always reviewing the plan, looking at your market, looking at the trends, looking at the economy. People might be willing to spend money in your area or in what you're providing. In other fields, I might say, actually, I don't need to spend that money here. I can save that money and spend it somewhere else. So those are the things that you need to consider in terms of when you're first thinking about setting up the business.
budget research.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank
Mhm.
you. Sometimes people talk about being self-employed because then you don't have to present any formal accounts and all that. And but I think where I'm going with this is the whole mix of personal with business finance? Is it very important that people sort of separate these two in terms of how they set up their finances, especially for self-employed people? I know for companies, a different ball game altogether.
I think it's very important for accountancy, for transparency purposes as well. For argument's sake, suppose you get a letter from HMRC and they say they want to inspect your accounting. You have to make sure you don't want a situation where you're claiming for things that are not business related, because that could have a knock for you later on. In the sense that if there's an inspection or someone wants to see your records, they say, well, hang on, you've claimed these as expenses, but actually they're not. So therefore, we're actually going to charge you more tax. There's a penalty, there's interest. So it's very important to keep business and personal expenses separate. And you can use software to help you. So there's so much software out there now, but find the right one for you where it's user-friendly, it's quite easy to manage. Xero, I love Xero. I always promote Xero over anything else. And it helps you, to keep track of what is going on for you as a business. In terms of personal, I'm using Snoop. It's an app that you can have on your phone that's linked to your personal banks. So your banks, your credit cards, all your bank accounts. And what it does is it summarizes and says, this is what you've spent this week. This is what's coming out your bank next week. This is what, and then there's comparisons. You can do this. You can do quite a bit of analysis as well. It looks at your mobile phones. It goes, well, actually your mobile phone tariff seems to be going up next month or next year, blah, blah, blah. So it's a very useful tool for personal finance. And it can show you what's happening with all your bank accounts and how you can move money around or what you need to do in your personal finance area. Right. So I think it's really important to keep those separate. It's more so for tax. I just think it's good for transparency, good for tax purposes, and how the business is doing quite clearly as opposed to, compared to your personal finance.
Right. Yeah. Right. Thank you for that. What did you say the name of the software was again, or the app?
It's called Snoop.
Snoop. That's SNOOP. Okay. Right.
Yeah. I'll just put it.
Okay. Snoop. Okay.
Yeah, Snoop. Yeah. So it's a free app as well. A free app.
All right. Yeah. I just thought the audience needs to hear that so people can look for it to help them as well. Oh, thank you. Financial plan. Is it very important starting a business? It's kind of funny. I don't know if it's just me who's observed it. It happened to me. I've seen it happen to people where there's this euphoric feeling when you're starting a business, your business is going to succeed, even if 10,000 failed. How do you know it's going to succeed? I know it's going to succeed. This is definitely going to do well, and those with religious affiliations will say, oh, I know God is going to back me. It's going to work. How important is having a financial plan?
I think it is. I think it helps you keep on track. It keeps you focused. Okay. It gives you direction as to how to move forward with the business. So I think it is important to have a business plan. I've always written business plans myself. Okay. From when I was 19, I wanted to do my own restaurant business. Then I wanted to do a coffee shop. Everything that I kind of envisaged doing, I wrote it down. What are the products? What is the price? What are other people offering for the price? Can I go low? If I go low, what would the profit margin look like? And where would I set up if I'm setting a physical shop? The location is going to be quite important because you're going to want footfall. Is the location only going to be Monday to Friday, or is it going to be Monday to Sunday? So all those things are going to be included in your plan. And it's good to have a plan so that in case you need to go for a business loan or get an investor, they will appreciate the fact that you've not just off a whim go, I'm going to set up a business so I can make money. Okay, what's the business? Have you figured out what your sales targets are going to be? They're more inclined to lend you money if they can see that you've actually deep dived into how the business is going to run and operate, what are the cost implications, and they're going to be realistic. Yeah. So anyone lending you, offering a business loan, they're going to say, well, is it realistic that you'll make £20,000 the first year in a sale as a takeaway? So those are the questions that you need to be asking yourself when you write the business plan, and be honest, because at the end of the day, if you over budget or overestimate in your plan and then it doesn't work out, you're going to have to find the shortfall to cover those expenses. So it gives you focus having a business plan as a new business owner, or not even just a new business owner, just review the plan regularly, because things change all the time in the economy and in the country that you're in.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that. And in terms of getting help with preparing plans, is this something accountants would ordinarily do, or they need to go to some financial planners and things like that?
Because I've done it for how many years, I provide that service.
Okay, right.
Even if they draft it themselves and then say, can you review it? Then I will sit down, have a meeting with them, and then say, what is your justification for saying this is the revenue? What is your justification for, and the evidence to say this is what the costs are? Because you really want to be realistic about the information you put down, because you want to make sure that you are making enough money to cover those costs and also to pay you as a business owner to cover salaries. If you're not covering the basics, then the issue then is, why are you setting up the business? Is it a hobby? Is it an interest? And those are the real conversations that you should be having, whether it's with me or as an accountant or another accountant or a financial advisor. But they need to be asking those tough questions and not going, yeah, that looks good, and then charge you a fee and then off you go. And then 2-3 months down the line, you're thinking, why is it things working in the business? And those with the business plan, it helps you to, like I said, I keep saying, gives you a direction to go.
Yes, right.
And also you need to be realistic, be realistic, because it's going to affect you and maybe others that you're employing. So it is quite crucial.
Keeping your goals smart, they say.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for all these great insights. Audience, I hope you're benefiting a lot from what is being explained and expounded on. You've already talked about this simple tool called Snoop that can help people, because I was going to ask you, like, any essential financial tools or systems every small business owner should use from day one.
I think definitely get yourself a cloud-based accounting software. And what that will do is link up with your business accounts and your other business savings accounts. So I always say to my clients, any new clients I'm onboarding, I go, if you have a business account, that's great. Open up another one for tax reserves to put money aside for tax obligations. So whether that's for VAT or for corporation tax or income tax for self-assessment. So I normally say set those up, and then you can link those up to your accounting software, and that will just update daily. With the accounting softwares that are around nowadays, they're really brilliant. So by the time you import that information, it's giving you key, realistic reports. So your profit and loss, your cash flow. Some of them do cash flow analysis for you now. It looks at your cash in and cash out. So even just a synopsis or a snapshot to say, well, you had £2,000 cash in, but you had £3,000 cash out. So you're overspending somewhere. So where did that extra income or money come in to cover those expenses? Is it from the previous month, or have you had to top it in? So those are the things that these apps, these software can do. So it's really quite good, because obviously cash is different from profit. So it helps you understand and track how the business is doing. So we definitely recommend getting a software. If you're still concerned about how that would work for you, you can initially start with a spreadsheet. I'm not a big fan of recording things in spreadsheet because errors can occur. There's another software called Invoice Simply that you can use to just record invoices if you just want to send out invoices for the time being until you get an accountant or a bookkeeper in. My preferred software is, as I said before, is Xero. I really like that. I am working with the other software companies like KPM and another one that I'm working with that deals with specifically for law firms and property law firms as well. So yeah, so important to have a good software. The thing is that the law here in the UK, or should I say England, as far as I know, is changing, in that if you earn income before expenses of 50,000 from April 26, you're going to have to report to HMRC every quarter what's going on in your business. And you need a software to do that. So if you're earning income of 50,000 from April 2026, you should have in place, or should be looking to put in place, a software to help you do that. And that's income if you're a landlord, I should say, or if you're an individual earning 50,000 self-employed. So if you're a landlord, self-employed, and you earn income of 50,000 before expenses, you need to have software in place, because it is required. If you don't have that in place, you'll get a penalty and points for not submitting that information. So that's in place from April next year. So software right now is playing a big part in how you run your business.
Wow, thank you for the alerts as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we don't know these things, and as you said, the law keeps changing all the time. So, right, let's come to a final one on this area of the financial foundations. Many business people struggle with pricing their products or services, and I remember, when was it? Around about November, one of my business colleagues was organizing this webinar on pricing your products. So I sent it out, the link, to a couple of people, because I knew it would be helpful, because I had that challenge myself, So, I mean, what are some strategies for setting the right price? I mean, I know you may say you're not a pricing consultant, but helping somebody start their business, would it be a cost plus approach that, okay, just do this, whatever it is, and put a little more on it, or study your environment and whatever?
I think it depends on the area of business that you're operating in. So, for example, if, like I said, if you're selling tennis shoes or trainers, you're making those and selling them, or you're making T-shirts, that would probably be easier to research. You can look online, because you'd be looking at, I'm assuming, for example, if you're selling T-shirts or trainers, you'd be looking to sell them online, because you wouldn't necessarily have a physical shop like H&M or Nike or something like that. So you'd be selling it from your house. So I would look online to see what are the prices for the similar products that you're selling. Then it's looking at your cost, because you want to consider the cost to make those items, and not just the cost to say make the T-shirt or make the trainers, but your labor involved in making those items. So whether it's just putting on a label, the design, or anything like that, you would have to then say, what is my time? How do I value my time? And that is something difficult to measure, I guess, as a business owner. So I think the first part would be to just make a comparison, because obviously the bigger shops are probably going to sell it at a low market, a lower price range, because of economies of scale. They've got the manufacturers, they can make it at big bulks at cheaper cost, that sort of thing. Whereas you as an individual, you're doing it by hand. So look at how much you value your time, and then look at how much you would need to sell to cover your costs. And then that's all probably how to gauge how I would price my products. If it's a service like myself, I ask around. I literally ask my colleagues. Again, I look at Jackie, for example, or someone else. Look at what sometimes we don't discuss it all in detail, but you get an idea as to how much they're charging their clients. I worked in practice before, so I kind of got an understanding as to what they charge. And also Google. Google is a good friend. So you go on Google and you then find out what they're charging, or what other accountancy firms are charging. Unfortunately, there are companies that are trying to push other, I suppose, accountancy firms out of the business and offer a low rate. But the thing I always say is that, my husband says, if you pay with peanuts, what are you going to get in return?
That's right.
So I won't say the complete sentence, but it's a case of, what are you getting in return? Are they just going to do your accounts? You don't know if it's done properly. You don't know if it's done by people who are registered with HMRC. They understand the regulations within this country. They have any interest in your business. So they're probably just going to see you once a year, do your thing at £500 for the whole year, and that's it. Bob's your uncle. So you have to look at what you're offering and justify that price range. Not everyone's going to want to buy your service or product at that range. But again, this is where research comes in to say, if you're offering a higher price range, which markets are you going to go into that are going to accept and willingly pay that price? So I have seen small businesses and even clients I'm talking to now, I'm like, what is this price? You need to up it. Because I work with other clients who are in the same field and you're charging half the price. That's why you can't leave your job or go full time or have the revenue that you want, because you're not charging the market rate. At least you're charging half to facilitate the fact of your friends or your aunties, your uncles, or whatever, to have that service or the connections of those family members so that you can at least have the revenue in. I always say to people, you set up business, yes, because you like the field, you enjoy what you do, but you do it to make money. You have to live. You have expenses. So if people can't honor your price, then you need to look at the market you're selling your services or your product in.
Yeah.
And it's a tough pill to follow sometimes, because you're thinking you want to target this particular market, but if they're not willing to pay the price, then I think you need to look at your market again and think about the business plan again.
Yeah, thank you. Very good advice there. Very good advice. Let's come to cash flow. I know you touched briefly on that at the beginning, but let's look at that area. I still remember one of your golden rules: planning and budgeting. So let's look at cash flow, because it's an area that affects so many people. Why do many companies go through this, and how can they avoid it?
I think it's overstretching sometimes. Sometimes genuinely you can just be so focused on the business that you forget what's going on. And people might say, how does that happen? You might be just focused on the day-to-day that you're forgetting actually at certain points of the month. That's when it clicks. Oh my gosh, I need this. Where's the money to pay this? Where's the money to pay this? And that's where planning comes in. That's where using software to help you plan ahead. And it does take time out of your day-to-day. And sometimes that's why it's best to have a bookkeeper in or an accountant to say, give me heads up or help me to plan going forward. So even if it's just 3 months at a time, so that you have targets to say, this is the money that I need in per month to cover these costs, because the cost will change sometimes per month. So if you're VAT registered, for example, you may have the quarterly VAT due at this point in time, but you have the sales coming in. You may not always, I do say, have the tax reserve accounts aside, but things happen, life happens. So you may have some of it or not all of it, but at least you have something there. But at least you're aware of it happening, and not a case of, oh my gosh, I've got a VAT bill. This is what it is. Where do I get the money from? It's about being forward thinking, using software, planning and discussion. And it does take time as a business owner to say, sit down, I have to do it. So even this morning, I had to sit down and go, okay, what are my expenses and things and commitments that I've got, obligations I've got? Can I meet those? And it's about that sort of planning where you say, I know this is coming out this week, next week. And you have the apps again. So Starling is a great online bank. You can look at that and see what
Starling, you're right. Yeah, okay.
Quickly see what's coming in and out of your bank. And you can see projection as well. For me, I sit down and think about, well, what's happening in the next few weeks. As a business owner, you kind of know what comes out regularly. So those things shouldn't catch you off by surprise. It's when you have those anomalies or things just happen. For example, you might have a leak in your business property or something like that, and it wasn't planned. Hopefully you would have insurance. Okay. So you could claim it through the insurance, or you have something put aside or contingency. So using an app, another app that I really, really love is Float. That was the other one I couldn't remember the last time we did the interview. Okay. It's Float. and the other one is Futurely. Futurely, I think it's quite detailed, and I probably think it's more for like, they say it's for small businesses, but I do, at the time when I was looking at it, it was a bit complicated for small business owners. But Float is a really, really good application, cash flow application. And Xero even have their own cash flow application embedded in the software.
Gotcha.
So you wouldn't necessarily have to go to another application. You could just use Xero and do your cash flow forecast that way. But Float tends to look at again, with AI and all this information, all this technology now, it can help you plan ahead and think about the costs that you have going through the system. So yeah, so there's software, conversations with your bookkeeper, sitting down, having a day out, just one day or half a day, just sitting down and looking at your business and saying, what's coming out of the business and have I got the cash for it? The client might have left, the big client might have left. What's left your business? What's the implication for your business? Because you still have the same cost. So it's just sitting down, taking some time out and just reviewing your business each month. I wouldn't put it off at all. It is quite crucial.
Wow. This is so insightful. Thank you so much for that. Well, I'm just nodding my head quietly, almost like I'm doing a one-to-one with you. Wow, this is good. Have you got space for more clients?
Yes, definitely. Always have space. I said, I have my own personal targets. And my husband's like, no, you don't need. I'm a workaholic in some regards, but I do like having downtime. I like to party and whatnot. But I do love what I do. I like helping small businesses